You're hanging out in the House of Sunny podcast, where it's always sunny, mostly because of your host, comedian and YouTuber, Sunny Loman. Want to know what Sunny and her friends are thinking about this week? Well, here she is, Sunny Loman.
Hey, welcome everybody to the program once again in this post-UK election results episode. Only because it just happened yesterday. Otherwise, we would have talked about something else, maybe. But the good news is the Conservative Party trounced the Labour Party. Trounced! Landslide victory. It's funny, though, what's considered a landslide these days. It's like, okay, they got about 44% of the vote, and that's a landslide. Labour Party got 32%. So it's more than 10% more than Labour Party. That's a landslide in today's election world, in the world today, where we see this sort of 50-50 divide, I think. And it's disturbing that 30% of people would still vote for Labour Party in the UK, but I mean, that's a huge amount of people. But
yeah, that's a half glass empty view.
I am a little negative on it because of that, but when you look at the actual seats, it's 365 seats to 200 seats. I mean, it's almost double, really, in terms of seats. It's double the
biggest majority since Thatcher.
Yeah. So this is what happens when people vote for Brexit and you don't let them have it. I mean, I don't even think that I think this was a one-issue election. This is a Brexit election. But the problem that you have, this is what I hear from a lot of people who walk away from the Democrats or I was watching this video of this young woman who used to be basically a little Greta, like a climate activist kind of person. And she has completely done a 180 in her viewpoint on environmentalism. And the crowbar issue wasn't even related to environmentalism. It was immigration. She's a German girl, and she was like, I could see in my community that what they were telling me on the news and what they were saying to me and what they were insisting I agree with didn't match with the reality of what I was living and the people in my neighborhood. So she could see that was the first thing that made her go, these people...
She should have believed the news, though. What are you talking about?
What do you mean?
She should have just believed the news.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
It doesn't matter what she sees in reality.
Well, that's their hope, right? But, so my point is that there, like a lot of people say, there's this tiny crack that happens when they first discover that the news is lying to them, or the politicians, when they first go, oh, the science isn't settled, or something like that. Like there's just this moment. And then from there, it's a domino effect because they start going down the rabbit hole of everything that they think they know, they question, and they start learning they were wrong. So she goes from immigration all the way over to environmentalism eventually. And I saw the same thing in this activist woman named Parker Posey, who was a feminist and an activist. And then when the trans thing came up and they started pushing women, they started implementing policies that would obviously make women less safe, that were taking away the gains that the feminists had earned, that they started ousting legit, like decades-long, credible feminist activists from the movement because they were like, whoa, what about women? Like real women. When she saw that, she was like, oh no, that's not happening. And then from there, she's become basically a conservative. So
that's rare. That's pretty rare.
I don't think it's rare. I mean, when I see like the walk away videos, Brandon Stroke, that guy who did the walk away movement, he has the same thing. He said there was this thing where I noticed, hey, they're lying to me about that. What else are they lying to me about? And that's what happens. And so I think, and the really courageous and heroic thing about that is something I want to get into, that we're all being gaslighted all the time. And I just want to talk to you guys about this because even when you know it and you're a full-blown skeptic, it's hard. Like you still have to check yourself and remind yourself that what you're seeing is real. It sounds crazy, but that's where we're at in the culture today. Right?
My liberal mom texted me the other day out of the blue and said, "Did you know the KGB's in the Oval Office?" So,
Mom, the Mueller report came out, and apparently that's not true.
Putin's in the Oval Office. So this is for every, the fact that these
reading
people
an
are
old
heroic.
paper?
I don't know what she's reading. Maybe she was just watching MSNBC. I think she was watching it that day.
Yeah.
Like she's like, this just came out. But for every, the fact that these people are heroic and courageous for leaving, I think is indicative of that it is difficult. That for every, one of those people, you've got, my liberal mom saying there's KGB agents in the Oval Office. That's how crazy it's
that's
become.
the 30%. I mean, that's
Yes.
literally the 30% are people
Like
who just
nothing I
cannot
could
put
tell.
two and two together. They really can't.
They can't. Yeah, they're just, and she's intellectually
offense to your mom.
incapable. No, it's true. I mean, and the thing is, she is smart. And the thing is like, she's intellectually incapable. And that's why I think so much of this is psychological rather than philosophical or political. She's intellectually incapable of pushing back against that. Like if CNN tells her that, she wants to believe it so badly.
Yeah.
Because she wants to hate Trump so badly.
Yeah.
That it's confirmation bias. It's cognitive. It's cognitive bias that she can't overcome it at her age. Maybe some of these other people can.
I mean, it's really hard to recognize your own bias. And I definitely, like the way some people feel about Trump, I do feel that way about some people, where just every time I even look at them, my skin crawls and everything out of their mouth I take kind of skewed in a negative way.
Right.
And I'm aware of it. I'm totally aware of it. And you know what clues me in is that I actually have like a gut ew about them.
The thumping in your ears and the blood pressure.
It's almost like a, bleh, like a feeling of bleh. Why?
No, I feel that way about Hillary. I feel that way.
Yeah. Like I felt that
Bill
way
Clinton.
about Bill Clinton when he was president. I was like, oh, he's so skeezy. I feel like I'm in the presence of a used car salesman. Where
yet
my
other
skin
people would
is
be
crawling.
like, oh, he's so charismatic and he's and I'd be like, what are you seeing? This guy's like a televangelist or something,
Oh,
so
yeah.
I get that.
See
I get
right
it.
through him. And there's somebody that I won't mention that is a commentator, and I'm to the point I dislike him so much, and I think he's so full of shit and so like wicked that it's like a Rand character where she's describing these chubby, wet lips, and I just like, I'm like all focused on these like physical characteristics that gross me out. And then I know, I'm dealing with like massive cognitive bias. And if the same thing came out of someone else's mouth, I would regard it with a more benevolent or a more neutral viewpoint. And so you have to be aware of these things. But so, and that's hard. That's hard to be aware of those things in yourself. I think that to me is my sign that I'm biased is when I I can just feel the feeling. And it's about non-essentials. Like, ooh, look at his lips. Look at his stupid hair. Like I just really get upset about these really non-essential characteristics. So Brexit happened. Like I said, I mean, not Brexit, but the UK election happened. We now have a massive majority in their parliament for the Conservatives. That's great for us, I think. And what's interesting about it is, I hope this is what we're going to see in 2020, kind of a landslide election here that validates this, hey, elite leftists, you've gone too far. Because they really have. And you have someone like Tulsi Gabbard, who's on the left, who's a person willing to have a conversation, who's a reasonable person, who's not for violence in our civil society, who's not wanting a revolution. She doesn't want to break down law and order. She'll have a conversation with conservatives. That's the old left. This new left is Ilhan Omar, Ocasio-Cortez. They're communists. They are witch hunting the president for all, they're going to do it for all 3 years. And I saw a thing today where they're already saying if he wins election, they're going to impeach him again.
Right.
Like they're not going to let him be the president. They're going to plague his administration constantly with having to defend himself legally against. And if I were Trump, I would be personally nervous about this because he could leave office and get indicted by these folks. So he's only sheltered while he's in office. And so he has to fight them, and it is scary, and it's something he really has to fight. So they are that at war with us, with the American people who voted for him, and just the American people in general. They don't like the country. They don't like our society. They don't want things to stay the same. They want things to be completely different. They want, the white people to be a minority. I know that's controversial to say that, but they've stated it. They are racist against white people. This is the extreme hard left that's running things right now. They want open immigration. They want to replace our population with Democrat voters, with socialists. They're at war with us. They want, the Green New Deal. Just read that. That would just totally crush our society and everything we love. And it would kill a lot of people. They support Antifa. They support these thugs. The press doesn't report when Antifa beats people up. They don't report about this kid in a MAGA hat getting beat up on the bus that just happened this week. They don't really talk about the shooting of the 5 Jewish people by the Black Israelites or whatever the weird cult that was.
The same guys that assailed the Covington kids.
Yeah, right. They were
that was the same group.
Not the Indian guy wasn't part of that. It was another group that was there that was harassing the Covington kids and caused them to kind of start doing the chants and stuff that they were then getting in trouble for. And anyway, what am I trying to say? I'm saying that the hard left has been sort of told off in the UK. All of that stuff. The people rose up and said, we actually voted for Brexit. And I've heard that even people who didn't vote for Brexit voted conservative because they're like, look, the country voted for Brexit. And now I'm seeing that we have this kind of deep state, I guess we could call it, in the UK that is not democratic.
Yeah, exactly.
And the people are saying that's not how things work. It's a democracy. The people, we rule ourselves. You guys work for us. It's kind of a similar sentiment as to here. It's not quite as the same as it is here, but we got that from them. So that's happening in England. And I hope that happens for us next year. I hope that we see a real landslide because that would be a real message to the hard left that's the wrong direction. And maybe it would put some more moderates in charge of the party. Maybe we'd see a change. Because the only way to get a change is for them to lose big time electorally.
It's funny that I was thinking, like, if you were a leftist Democrat, and we should probably separate the two because I think there are more reasonable Democrats and then there's the hard left. But the hard left is what's driving their party. So I think we have to speak of the most radical and most consistent
only because they're the ones
side.
running policy. They're,
what's happening
they're
is in total
insane.
Control.
Yeah, they're in total control.
So what I was going to say, though, is if you're on that side, if you wanted to ensure that Trump gets reelected, what would you do? I think, the first thing you would do is say, well, let's completely dismiss the concerns of the 60 million people that voted for Trump. But not only just dismiss them or say, we disagree with your solution that things like immigration and the economy and healthcare and things like that you're concerned. Not only is that not a concern, it's not even real. But not only that, not only do we disagree with you, you're actually evil for even having that view. And not only are you evil for having that view, you probably need to be replaced. And the whole country needs to be changed. So
when
it's
you
like
talk to a hard leftist online, or, just when you get into forums or something and you're talking to somebody who believes in white privilege, let's say, someone who's, really believes in that, you can get them so fast. It doesn't take very many steps before they literally are talking about concentration camps.
Yeah, that's right.
So
because they've been taught to believe that, that whiteness is a form of violence, that the history and the collective white race, or however they conceptualize it has done and is doing violence and damage, and the systemic racism that they perceive is like actively hurting them and doing violence. So it needs to be stopped like now. And so they're not just saying, we have a different viewpoint and let's argue about this and debate it. They're saying, you're killing us physically. And so we need to, we're justified in doing anything.
We need to kill you first. It's like a self-defense.
It's a form of, so their view is that anything goes. If we have to take extra legal means to get rid of Trump and his people and his supporters, if we have to kill people or punch them or whatever, and this is this us against them, all or nothing sort of attitude that's now been instilled in a generation of kids that have come up with these professors. If they, to the extent that they believe that, you got to take it seriously, because they've now developed a sort of an epistemological and philosophical narrative that prevents them from being reasonable. We've said this before, because they're not just saying, oh, we think socialism is better than capitalism. They're not saying that. What they're saying is words are a form of violence. Ideas are a form of violence. Ideas do harm to people. Your way of thinking, I don't just disagree with it and I want to argue with you about it. You're hurting me and you're hurting everyone. You're an oppressor, and there's an aggrieved victim class that's being, every time you talk and speak, and if we give you freedom and space, their words, if we give you freedom and space to make your case, you're going to perpetuate this system of oppression. And so we can't do that. We can't allow you to speak. And so we don't want to hear it. We don't want to hear you talk. We don't want to have a debate with you. And we want to shut you down.
And it's true. It's true that the truth wins out. And so if you do have the free marketplace of ideas, truth wins.
Yes.
Because, human beings actually do have the capacity for reason. And you're gonna, in a group of humans, you're gonna have a certain amount of, I guess it depends on the group. But I don't know. You got to have a little faith in in mankind too. That's why this fake news stuff really bothers me. The fact checking on Facebook. It's, you know what? I was better off when I occasionally shared fake news and I got pounced on by 20 of my friends and teased.
Yeah. You were
ostracized. Sonny, that's fake. Like, do you read the articles before you post them? Oh, shit, I would always feel horrible about that. And that was a much better fact-checking environment than we have now, where they gray out the article and now there's nowhere to go. You don't know what to believe. And that's kind of what the segue too into just the discussion about the gaslighting. So the other news going on is this impeachment of President Trump. And what I was saying at the beginning about even those of us who are aware of their own confirmation bias, we're aware that the left owns all the communication except for, fringe internet. But even that it is so hard now to follow people that have been deplatformed. You have to pay, you have to buy memberships here and there. You have to put a little note. I got to go check out what this person said, what that person said. Like, they're just not, it's not all available on Facebook anymore or Twitter or whatever, wherever you kind of consume that stuff. So they've made it a lot harder for us to get news. And, you can't surf YouTube anymore. YouTube has changed its algorithms and all the people that I used to just kind of go down the rabbit hole with and enjoy listening to their news. And I've subscribed to like somebody like Tim Pool, who tries to do more neutral reporting, and he never comes up in my suggested or recommended, ever, on YouTube. So he's being completely shadow banned. You're not allowed to deviate. So they own the message, and with that narrative, they lie to us. And they project this kind of uniformity, I think, which gaslights us into feeling like we're this kind of, oh, we don't have a shot, like we're just this small group of people that get it. Most people don't get it. Most people are this fringe, horrible leftist. That's not true. And I think, like you said, even among Democrats, it's not true. And you see that with the walk away, like people walking away because what's bothering them is they don't like being lied to either. They don't like that. And they find out they're being lied to and gaslit. And even amongst us who see it, it's really hard to stay rational and stay objective about the news that I consume. It's a lot of work, actually. And I have to constantly be reminding myself I have to be skeptical. I have to ask questions, no matter where I'm getting the news. So what this election in the UK shows us is, all the polls were saying it was going to be really close, and it was a landslide. And all of our polls talk about how it's close here, and so on. And I'm kind of okay with that because I feel like they're also fooling themselves, and they're not going to, like, remember when Trump won and everybody's head exploded? They had no idea that he was going to win. Because all the polls were that Hillary was going to get a landslide. And then it was it wasn't a landslide, but then Trump won, and everybody was like, what? They couldn't believe it. I think if they had thought, and look how hard they've been fighting Trump since, if they thought that he was going to win, it would have been brutal, much more brutal than it was leading up to it.
Yeah, it induces a sense of complacency in their base, and what's funny is that I think they want to believe they're going to win because it feels good to them. I don't think they want to. So rather than looking at reality, which is probably the right approach.
Well, but the news is giving them polls. The news is giving them facts that actually support that Trump is going to lose.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean, though. But rather than, if you wanted to defeat Trump, like I was just saying before, like what's the recipe for getting Trump elected? It would be like, first of all, like what I said before, which is that you dehumanize everyone and dismiss all their concerns, and double down on your own view and don't learn anything. The second thing would be, don't believe the polls again, don't look at reality, and don't figure out where you need to fight. Just assume you're going to win and take all these like horribly biased polls and, just feel good about it.
Are they really that dumb?
Yes.
I think they might be.
I don't think it's stupidity. I think it's psychological.
It's epistemology too.
I think it's cognitive
evasion.
Breakdown.
It's evasion. And like you said, it's like the bias that they just have to believe. They have to believe. So with this impeachment, the thing that's the most disturbing to me is, and the Russia stuff, is that, oh, by the way, the founders of Fusion GPS, who is responsible for the Steele dossier and all of the Russian hoax stuff.
Glenn Simpson.
They wrote an editorial in The Guardian asserting that Russia was behind this re-election in the UK of the Boris. I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. They said Britain needs its own Mueller report on Russian interference. Can you believe that?
Yeah, I do.
The British political system, this is a quote, the British political system has become thoroughly compromised by Russian influence.
Okay, well, this is interesting because if you've been hearing the quotes of the last few days from Nadler and others, they're saying, this is actually fascinating, ties into what you're just saying, which is Nadler basically said, and Schiff said this too, that we have to impeach, you know, because they're saying, well, why would you impeach Trump? There's an election in 12 months. Like, what are you doing? Just let the election play out. And he said, no, because Trump is so corrupt that he will corrupt the process, so that even if Trump wins re-election, we can't trust that the process worked, because he's going to violate that processing. And so they're already setting the stage for declaring the election to be completely illegitimate.
They literally want civil war. They literally want it. They're working really hard to divide us all and cause a civil war. And just look, we can talk about what's happening in Virginia. These hard leftists want revolution. They want war. They are out of control. And if the Democrats don't rein these people in, and if the right doesn't start going on the offensive, which I think we are and we have, but we need to be more consistent about it. We need to be more consistently on the offensive with them, and not go, oh, well, that's a reasonable thing. No. They are never reasonable. Like, for example, not one more Republican goes down till I see some Democrat heads roll for their corruption. Because I have watched corrupt politician and administrator after another get away with it on the Democrat side. We all know it's Lois Lerner. I'll just go down the list. They're all getting away with it. And we're watching that. And then I get told by people on the right, well, if Trump committed a crime, then we do need to. No, 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 not another inch. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
That's where I'm at. And so when it comes to the Russian investigation here and the impeachment and everything, I've been saying from the beginning of the Russian thing, where's the dead body? Like, where's the crime? Show me the election. Show me the vote that was corrupted by the Russians or anybody. Like, show me the vote. And then trace that corruption back to Trump. Like, but nobody has showed the crime.
No, it's just it's what do you call it?
It's a literal witch hunt. It's a literal, we're gonna stick a probe up this guy's butt and see if anything comes out.
Because every time I would see like Swalwell or Schiff or one of these guys on TV or one of these leftist pundits, someone like a Tucker would try and pin him down. Like, just answer this one question. Like, what is the crime?
Point to the election that was corrupted.
Yeah, like black and white. What is it? And
they never can.
Well, are you a Russian agent? It would just be some change the subject. It would be a smear. And there's never discussion of like, what's the crime? What did he do? Like, point to it. Just show us.
But people who supposedly are not on the left have fallen for this too. They've fallen for the narrative for whatever reason they want to. I think they hate Trump. And they have that same visceral response to him, that same aesthetic. Oh my God, look at his hair. Look at his lips.
He must have done something wrong.
Yeah.
So now let's search for what he did wrong.
Let's search for it. And we'll take everything he says nuanced against him. And when you do that to anybody, you can find something. You can. I mean, it's like, I don't know if anyone's been through this. I've been through this. A lot of my people, I hear this story over and over where, like, say you have a boss and that person takes it into their head that they don't really want you there anymore. And in today's culture, they can't just fire you. So they start building a case.
Yeah.
Right? I don't care how good of an employee you are and how awesome you are and how even by the book and stick up your ass like stickler you are, they will find something. They will find a way to write you up 3 times and fire your ass.
Yeah.
Because that's just, you can just do that. You can twist something into a negative way and make it a problem. And so that's what you do when you have this bias, and that's what people with TDS do. And in the absence of a crime, a lot of people who say, I'm not on the left, I'm neutral, whatever, they were like, he could be guilty of colluding with Russia. No, there's no crime. There's no crime. There should be no investigation.
Well, particularly when these allegations and smears are then amplified by these echo chambers and social media, and it builds into hysteria. I mean, this is exactly the recipe for the witch hunt, the villagers with the torches.
Yeah. And taking it into the impeachment realm, we have Joe Biden basically admitting to Ukraine corruption with his son getting all this money. We know, because we can see it. Like, we can see black and white. There's the corruption. I can see it. I'm looking at it. Crickets. But has a phone call that maybe he didn't articulate it quite. He seemed to imply, his actions didn't back up that he did a quid pro quo. But
and the
what
whistleblower
he said
heard
on the
one of his
thing
friends said he heard it. Yeah.
It's like now we've got now we're going to impeach an American president right before the election because no reality. And I see people who aren't on the left saying, well, it's, he shouldn't have said that and he shouldn't have held the funding. The funding was an act of Congress. And so he violated an act of Congress.
No,
It's like, you're
point.
reaching, dude. You're reaching. You're not just, you're also missing the point. But you're nuanced against this guy. And on top of that, Joe Biden needs to go down first.
Yeah. If you could take Biden down and you could take Hillary down for deleting her emails and for obstructing justice, and you could take Biden's down for quid pro quo, okay, then let's talk. But until you do that, you have no credibility. You're not serious.
It's not even just credibility. It's like, it's not fair. It's not just. I'm not allowing it. Because and I hate to even, I never used to like really pick a side. I'm definitely not a collectivist or a tribalist. Like I'm sure some objectivists are going to say what I'm saying sounds like. But at this point, if you are neutral about the left, you are on a side. You're on their side.
Yep.
Because they are trying to kill our society, everybody. I think we've shown that, right? I mean, they're revolutionaries. They're trying to cause a civil war. They're trying to rip us apart. They have unleashed Antifa. It's time to pick a side. You cannot be on the fence on this anymore.
It's sort of like, during the Cultural Revolution under Mao when the Red Guards came along and said, any sense that anyone supports capitalism or has bourgeois values, we're going to kill or imprison. And, so like millions of people are, they're trying to execute hundreds of thousands and millions of people. And then, the Red Guards find like one guy that maybe it's borderline that he actually committed a crime. So, the people, well, maybe he did. No, you're in the middle of like a nascent genocide forming. Like, don't give don't nuance this.
You cannot give ground. It's a war. I mean,
it's like you're feeling a raindrop and there's like a hurricane on the horizon.
Andrew Breitbart was like #war. And he's right. And it's worse than when he was alive and saying that. Much worse. They are much bolder and much more in your face, lying to our faces, lying on all the news is so incredibly biased now. And then for somebody I respect, someone who's supposedly, more neutral, not on the left, not an establishment, not really a GOP, whatever, like more the, I guess, libertarian types. And they're buying the narrative hook, line, and sinker. Well, maybe there is something there and maybe he shouldn't have said that and it's an act of Congress. And I'm dumbfounded. I can't even believe that they're buying into this stuff. And the same thing goes, I'm going to raise just a couple of side, somewhat non-political issues that are the same. Remember when they came out with this opioid epidemic?
Yeah.
I think I've talked about it on the podcast before. When I first started seeing the news items on this, I was like, why aren't they giving any information? Like there's just no facts. It's all this kind of, I'm getting the words, these hyperbolic opioid epidemic without any proof that we're having an opioid epidemic.
Yeah.
Like, why are they hiding the information?
You're being emotionally stirred up over
I'm being
someone's
stirred
malady.
Up. Something's wrong. And I
without
actually,
a real fact.
At the time, I looked into it and I found the facts. And the facts were, there is an opioid epidemic in the sense that there is this drug addiction epidemic going on. There are suicides happening. There are overdoses happening all over the place from opioids, but they are not prescription. It's all the other stuff. It's the street stuff. And what they wanted to do with their narrative was increase restrictions on prescription drugs. That's what the politicians were doing to show that they were doing something, to grab more control over people who need pain management, grab more control over the medical industry by forcing people who need pain management to have to, I don't know. There's a ton more hoops you have to jump through.
Well, there was also a class action against the manufacturer of Oxy and stuff. So there was.
Yeah, so there's money involved, lawyers. I mean, who the hell knows who's like behind this? But somebody's behind this. And guess what? It's actually fentanyl from China and Mexico and the drug trade. And like what's happening is, and then by restricting prescription opioids, they've made it worse because they've pushed people in pain who can't live with it onto the street to get their opioids, and they're getting corrupted stuff and they're dying. That's what happened to Prince. So, I mean, it's a problem. Like this is what they're doing to you, and that's somewhat political. You don't know what corporations behind that. We live in a half fascist society where a lot of the big corporations are working with government, and then those people are connected to the news, and they're creating these narratives to fool all of you, to gaslight you all into believing certain things. And I think vaccines is another one of these issues. And I know I'm going to get called an anti-vaxxer. I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I believe in vaccines. But why can't we talk about them?
Right. It's like if you question policy with Israel, you're an anti-Semite.
Yeah.
If you push back on environmentalism, you're a climate denier.
Yeah.
You know, there's no sense of it's just us against them.
Yeah. So when I see this uniformity of narrative, when I see no facts, when I see denier, pushing to not be able to talk about it, that raises all my alarm bells, and then I start getting really skeptical. So that's just a little tip for you guys.
It's unscientific.
Yeah, it's epistemologically, it's not rational. It's unreasonable. Yeah, just be really skeptical and question. That's it. You know, look for truth and facts, and try to find out, why aren't they telling me facts? If they're saying there's an opioid epidemic, they must know something. What do they know? Why aren't they telling me? How'd they get to that conclusion? Okay, if Trump needs to be impeached, well, I'm just against it because I see this. We've been through 3 years of the Mueller report. It came out to be a big zero. This is just a continuation of that. This is just more trying to get this guy out of office through impeachment. The Mueller report didn't work out. They impeached him anyway. And now you got people supposedly neutral or on the right who are buying it.
Yeah, it's just like, put it into context. This isn't, you know, if this was like a charge that came out of the blue suddenly and there was something nefarious going on, you'd say, okay, well, let's look at this. This seems like, you know, we should. But look at the full context. They've been trying to get him impeached since before he took office. I mean, remember they were trying to push the Electoral College into not voting for him. Then they were trying to do the 25th Amendment thing and the emoluments. And then, you know, like right after the election,
it was just on and on.
On and on. So there's like this full context, and none of it has been legitimate. I mean, and we know that if I put a spotlight on your life right now, like, you know, little old Sonny sitting there, I'd probably find some criminal, you know, you've probably violated some federal act somehow, you know, in your life. And yet you've got the full weight of the CIA and the NSA and the FBI on Trump, and they still can't really get him on anything. And
that tells me he is squeaky clean, man. Seriously.
And yet the next charge that comes along from Jerry Nadler and these hyper partisan resistance swamp creatures, we're going to see people on our side say, well, maybe, blah, blah, blah. No, maybe. There's no maybe. Right. You know, unless you show me a dead body at this point and Trump's on videotape pulling the trigger. Like and even then I would question it. Like, well, maybe they faked it.
Right. Maybe it's a deep fake.
It's a deep fake. Exactly. Like they're it's so boy who cried wolf at this point. You know, they're the people who are like, the people on the right that still believe this are like, well, the boy cried wolf. Maybe there's a wolf. Maybe this time there is a wolf. You know, how stupid you have to be.
And not only that, but like, they're basically, there is a wolf. There's 10 wolves and they're munching on your sheep. And they're saying, oh, look at that wolf that might come around the corner from the woods.
Yeah.
Like you got 10 wolves right in front of you munching on your sheep. Get busy.
They're munching.
They are slaughtering your sheep as we speak. So they want to destroy America. I mean, it sounds crazy. I sound like I'm gaslighting people, but
no.
It's if you just step back and get out of like defense mode and stop thinking about, hey, no, let me tell you, Trump really didn't commit a crime and blah, blah, blah. It's irrelevant. What's happening is, look what the Democrats are doing to us and our society, and not letting, look at what they're not doing. They're not handling any of the issues that we care about. They're not letting Trump handle any of the issues that we care about. They have stymied everything he's tried to do. From the moment he got into office and said, I'm going to ban immigration from these 7 chaotic Muslim majority countries. And they said, nope, you're not going to do that. And he still hasn't been able to do that. Meanwhile, we have Saudi Arabia killing people did you know that he was upset a couple years ago when he found out that soldiers on bases weren't armed? And he said he's tried to do something about that. And the machine that is the deep state military industrial complex or whatever thwarted him. 2 years later, we're all going, what? Why doesn't Trump do something about this?
Well, remember when he tried to pull like a few hundred soldiers out of Syria a few months ago? And it wasn't even pulling them out of Syria. It was like just sending them to a different part of Syria. It was the Kurds. Blah, blah, blah.
Oh, no. It's our job to protect them in perpetuity. No, it ain't.
Yeah.
I'm so, you guys.
Okay, so one thing I wanted to quickly say is that I think because our side tends to be more scientific and tries to be objective and reasonable, like we're always the ones who are looking to and thinking about the other side and saying, well, maybe we want to show that
we're not hypocrites and that we're not.
And we're being reasonable and we're logical and hey, give me the facts and everything else. And what's problematic about that, it's not problematic. That is the way you should be. But you also have to take into consideration the fact that now the other side, and to the extent that the other side was like that and just, hey, we want to have a debate in public and we're going to invite our friends and you invite your friends and we'll have a debate. Great, let's do it. But to the extent that they're now saying, we don't want to have debates, you need to go in the corner and shut up because you're white and, you're part of a systematic
the patriarchy,
patriarchy that's oppressing these marginalized
just
people.
America. You're an American, and therefore you're evil. Your whole history is based on racism. Remember 1619? Yeah. Everything about your country is racist, imperialist, colonialism. You're wrong. Everything you say is BS because of that. We're not listening to you.
We're not, and not only are we not listening to you,
we're gonna
We're going to try everything in our power, including, messing with an election, possibly. I mean, is there any extreme these people, given what they've done, given what this cabal has tried to achieve through the FBI and the deep state in terms of undermining and taking down Trump, in terms of what these congressional Democrats have done with everything from the Kavanaugh thing to these impeachment to the smaller stuff. Would you suspect if they got into a voting electronic voting machine and we've seen voter fraud all over the place.
We know that in districts where they're running things that it's like 102% of the vote turns up. Yeah. I mean, give me a break.
Yeah,
and so we know the CIA, the FBI, and the Obama administration colluded to spy on their campaign rival and then to take him down.
And this is on the heels of using the IRS to shut down the 501 nonprofits.
To crush the Tea Party. And to crush any journalists who complained about Benghazi. Hello, Cheryl Atkinson. And the guy from Fox and the AP. Like, the Obama administration used his administration to intimidate anybody who disagreed with him. We know this, and no heads rolled.
And then you look at how the city of Chicago has been run by the Democratic machine and the Democratic machines in New York and all the big cities that are corrupt and violent and horrifying. And then look at every socialist country that's ever existed in history. So all of our experience, 100% shows these people to be violent, totalitarian, purveyors of, tyranny and oppression and power-lusting maniacs who will lie, cheat, steal, shut down the press, violate your civil rights and civil liberties. And, so you've got, if, again, we're trying to be the reasonable ones. I think we go out of our way in this regard because that's just how we're made. That's not how these people are operating anymore. And I think to the extent we recognize that or you see that, we can't treat it the same.
Yeah, it's not the same. You can't be reasonable with these people. You can't give them an inch. You can't give them an inch. They are taking ground in a war to destroy America. It's crazy. And I wanted to say, I mean, when a kid can't wear a MAGA hat on a bus in America, what the fuck, guys?
Yeah, make America great. Nope, can't do it.
Can't do it. And you can't draw Muhammad, and you can't, like our society's really changed in 20 years. Since 9/11, really. And
yeah, particularly since 2013. Yeah.
Particularly since then, but things started going downhill, I'd say, after we were attacked. And I think that Bush bears a lot of responsibility, too, for how bad things have gotten and how corrupt and strong the deep state has gotten. I mean, the TSA, guys.
Yep.
Just the TSA, this pointless security theater that goes on that has destroyed travel in this country. I feel the same way about that as I feel about the Eiffel Tower and the barricade around it. Blow it up. I would rather have a plane go fucking down than we have the TSA. And we need to find another way to keep us safe. And that is keep out the terrorists. Even if we have to be ruthless about it. No more Muslim immigration.
Yep.
Okay, so I wanted to say, I think we do a really good job in certain respects. I think we're doing better. I think electing Trump was, that kind of an FU. It was that kind of and he's not even good enough. He's not even tough enough, in my opinion.
Not at all.
But I love the way that we've handled Greta. I think the way that we've handled Greta is perfect. I think Trump saying to her, "You need anger management. Go watch a movie, kid."
That's
is
exactly
great.
The response she deserves.
And the fact that the right is like, no, there's nothing wrong with him saying that. No, we're not going to say because she's a child we can't say stuff like that to her because she's the one out here in the public eye scolding us and telling us to basically destroy our society.
Meanwhile, the left is doxing and trying to kill some high school students from Kentucky, for saying USA while they're being attacked.
I don't know about this story.
Covington.
Oh, the Covington kid, yeah.
So I'm saying, look at the double standard once again.
Right.
Poor Greta. This is a girl who's trying to, throttle industrial civilization.
Right.
With, some nonsensical claims.
She's like a terrorist shield. She's like when the Muslims go into a church and then we don't bomb it. That's silly. Exactly. Bomb the church, man. Bomb the church and kill the terrorists. And we're not the ones putting Greta out there. We're not the ones who have destroyed her childhood. We're not the ones who have put her in a position to be ridiculed. We haven't done that. They did it. And we have done such a good job of ignoring all the criticism. Oh my God, it's a child. Nobody cares, man. The memes are great. The criticisms are spot on. We got open letters being written to her. Everybody's just been really good about, no, we're not listening to that this time. We're the nice guys. We're the reasonable guys. Yeah, we don't want to hurt kids. But no, we're not going to listen to that when it comes to Greta. And we need to have we need to apply that same ruthless, give no ground, moral righteousness to all of the battles. That's my message for today.
You said something before in this battle idea, which is why isn't Trump firing everybody? What's he worried about? Is he worried about getting bad press?
Fire them all. Why hasn't he closed down any government departments yet, like he promised? Just fire them and close it down. Why is the Department of Education still there?
Yeah. And
he said he would get rid of it.
Yeah.
And she's great. They just don't have the moral righteousness to do it. He's not, it's true that he's not intellectual enough. He doesn't have the same convictions. He is trying to just run the government better. I think he's been fine and he has some good instincts, but he is not morally opposed to what's going on here.
But why wouldn't you go into the FBI and the DOJ and the CIA and just say, I'm shutting this all down? Like
the DOJ, man. I mean, it's his department.
Yeah.
Why?
Like he had Jeff Sessions there for 2 years.
He put a new guy in charge of the FBI. And I remember when he put
Ray,
that guy in charge and everyone was like, that's a weird choice. Like he's not that good. And now he's having to maybe fire that guy because he's not that good. You know, he's part of the establishment. Why can't we get a real firebrand in there? Why did Trump get rid of the people around him that are more of that kind of personality?
Yeah, he got rid of Bannon and all those guys. And
Gorka. Like, I mean, I don't agree with everything that they think and stuff.
People.
But it was like almost like, okay, he gets into office. He's under all this suspicion. He has to really hunker down and protect himself. I mean, because he could go to prison when he's out of office. Like, that's how serious this is, right? They arrest Paul Manafort. They arrest Flynn. Like, they start taking down his guys all around him, his closest advisors. So what does he do? He surrounds himself with the people he can trust, his family. The only people he can truly trust are his family, and they are Democrats.
Yeah. Yep.
So they pushed him into this place where he doesn't have these real, when you hear that his Secretary of State, Tillerson, and who's the other guy, Kelly, were trying to conspire with Nikki Haley to subvert Trump's agenda?
Yeah.
That's his administration, guys. Oh, my God. He doesn't have any power.
Well, then he brings in a neocon like John Bolton, and and he's got like this neocon right coming at him, and then he's got the crazy left. And
Paul Ryan was in charge of Congress for his first 2 years. Paul Ryan and McConnell, and they didn't do anything.
No, because I don't think the Republican establishment really wants to do anything. I mean, they're just
they don't.
They have jobs, they love it, they're on the gravy train. This is why it's more about DC and the swamp.
It is.
And that includes the establishment Republicans, the neocons that support the military empire state, and the left that want a Leviathan federal government power structure. Like, all these people are united in their support of this DC machine that sucks the life and energy out of our country. It is.
I really am shocked at how bad it is.
And it just shows you like who's really in control of, this guy is president. Like, you always think, the president, he can kind of do whatever he wants. And I even thought this about Obama, because Obama had, in some cases, some pretty good ideas, like with respect to foreign policy. He seemed to really want to, he was kind of a bit of a civil libertarian in some way, I thought. Anyways, so, you see these people get elected and they're really not in control. I mean, they're essentially figureheads that have been put in place by people with a lot of money, and there's a career bureaucracy and establishment in Washington that really runs the state. Obviously, the State Department and the embassies and the diplomats that run our, and we've seen this come out in these hearings where where diplomats are coming in and basically saying, we didn't like the fact that, we didn't like Trump's policy. We didn't like his policy,
so we ignored it, and we decided to go against it. And then he sent Giuliani over here to like do something. Well, that's inappropriate. That's not gonna fly. That's inappropriate. It is. It's like it's pervasive that all these people they've got their own agendas. And I do think there's money behind this, and I think there's foreign money behind this. And like under Obama, the Muslim Brotherhood really infiltrated DC. I'm sure they did that with Saudi money and with, Iranian money. And like, who in the right mind would do that Iranian deal? Why did that deal get done?
Yeah, the biggest lobbies are Saudi and Israel.
Where'd that cash go that we dropped on their runway? I mean, there's just, and China? How many, and Qatar? Like, you hear that, like, Ilhan Omar is taking Qatari money, I guess. Is like she's now being accused of being corrupted by Qatar, which doesn't surprise me. I mean,
and I think it just goes to show you that, like, systemically, and this is like big picture, a federal government doesn't work. and there's no way it can work. It's impossible for it to work. And by work, I mean do anything resembling a function that's in our self-interest, which would be like just basically like defense and like a court system. And to the extent that you enable a federal government that to have a printing press that can print money to fund a $4 trillion budget deficit or $4 trillion budget, and with millions of employees scattered around the globe.
It's so much money. It's like it's too big of a draw. It's like the vultures have pounced.
This is like the Roman Empire now.
You can't
and so we need
people
to break
from,
it. It needs to be broken up.
It does need to be broken up. We need to go back to state power.
And maybe when you see what's happening in Virginia with these crazy gun laws they're trying to pass there, which is way over the top.
Let's cover that. So in Virginia, the Democrats took over, but they only live in like a few counties, right? It's the DC creep that creeped into Virginia, and then it's Mexican immigration that flooded into that state, and they turned it from real red to real blue. Well, you still have all these people in these red counties going, what? So the Democrats come in, they take a super majority in that state legislature, and they start passing restrictive gun control. That's the first thing they're doing. And the people they are rebelling. The counties are saying, the sheriffs and the counties are saying, we declare our county a sanctuary county from these laws against Second Amendment.
Yeah.
It's a Second Amendment sanctuary, they're calling it. And so you're basically having a county revolt in a blue state, which I'm surprised that hasn't happened in California because things are so bad here and the water rights and all that. I mean, I'm just surprised the farmers have put up with it for so long.
It's going to and this is a template for, and on the left, it's happening too. I mean, if they're going to create immigration sanctuaries and the right's going to create Second Amendment sanctuaries, this is sort of like Brexit.
It's kind of like creating two countries.
We don't want to be part of the European Union. We don't, as Virginians, we don't want to be part of a national union. We don't, in Virginia or in Alabama or wherever, Idaho, we don't want the same rules and laws that people in California want. So, the whole country was founded on the idea that each state was sovereign and could make its own constitution and its own laws. And the federal government had a very limited function, and it was restricted. It was very much restricted in what it could do. And the Bill of Rights ensured that the federal government couldn't do certain things. And, we've got, obviously this is a huge topic. I mean, the Civil War, I guess, ended that system. But I think that's where we have to go, is what I'm saying. The only place we can go now is get small and less centralized. Right. And states have to start asserting. The states are the only hope we have because they're the only groups that are big enough. You can't, as like some small group, do anything with the federal government. But a state like Texas, a state like Florida, a region of states could.
It's kind of what I said before. I think I said before, we need to get involved in local politics more. Because I think it is the only hope. It's how we take the country back, or at least protect ourselves from federal socialism. Because that's where we are headed, absolutely, is to federal totalitarianism. It's being aided and abetted by big tech, by big corporations. I was listening to, I can't remember what I was watching, but it was just explaining the money behind our open immigration and how it literally is companies looking for cheap labor that are funding politicians, and that's why you have across the board
Is it tech or is it tech and agriculture?
No, it's not even agriculture. It's like manufacturing, and it's across many industries where these, a factory wants cheaper labor. And so they support. I remember what I was listening to. It was something on refugee resettlement, and so it was. These people were then funding in their local communities politicians who would be in favor of refugee resettlement. So even when people would vote in Republicans, they would get Republicans that would support the refugee resettlement, and then the federal government gives a per head fee to these charities, these nonprofits that handle each case. So per person that they settle, they get a fee. Like there's a total conflict of interest. And then the state gets money, and like it's just really all very corrupt. It's all about money in the end. And that's why you have all these people who don't want refugees in their communities, because it's especially, I mean, it's so overburdening to the services, and it's not a racist thing. It's like they were talking about in one county, 67 languages were being spoken.
Jesus.
And imagine the problems that brings up in the hospitals and the schools, and you're guaranteed an education. So now you have to have interpreters, and like, I mean, the funding.
Why should I pay for this?
Right.
Why do I have to pay for a translator in an emergency room to take care of someone from the Middle East kids?
Yeah.
Like, I want to just take care of my own kids.
Right. So the people are like, we've had enough. We don't want any more. We don't want any more refugees. But once you get one, then you get the chain migration and all this other, like, so it's a big scam, and it's all about money. And I was watching a podcast that was just sort of tracing all the money just around the refugee program. And that's why they like the asylum stuff and everything, because, you know, they get cheap labor.
Well, in the H-1B visa program,
I
I was in a
that's
company
tech
where
one,
this guy would hire these people, and they were like serfs. I mean, they couldn't go anywhere. They couldn't demand anything, because if they got fired,
they'd be deported.
They would be deported. So they just sat there and took whatever they needed to take. And if they, you know, it was sickening. Right.
So anyway, be like we are with Greta about all these issues. Don't give any more ground. Your friends who are trying to sit on the fence, we gotta push them off the fence. They gotta come onto our side and start really acknowledging that the context is pretty dire. It's pretty serious. I mean, I've kind of been blackpilled, and then I see what's going on in the UK, and I think, you know what, more people agree with me than it seems, and I'm being gaslit to think that it's a smaller.
You're crazy.
Yeah, you know, I know a lot of Democrats who are really upset about open immigration. For example, I think that most Americans did not want universal health care. They didn't want Obamacare, and they shoved it on them regardless. And most Americans don't want open immigration. And, you know, most Americans are reasonable people. So
Democrats were the ones behind immigration restrictions historically, because they were the party of the working man that didn't want to compete with the cheap labor. So it was the left that historically was against immigration. And it was only in the last, you know, let's say decade, where you have the hard left who wants to just destroy America.
So
they sympathize with anyone who's oppressed, quote unquote. They don't care about the country or about anyone else in America, which historically the Democrats did. They just want to destroy the country, and they want to sympathize with the oppressed. So whether it's a Muslim
and it puts them in power. That's why, and it's money in their pocket today because they're getting some sort of payoff. And this is why the vaccine thing to me is off limits, because it's all these big corporations lobbying the CDC to include their vaccines, and they've also got laws that say they've capped any vaccine injuries. There's a special vaccine court. You don't get to sue them for vaccine injury in a regular court. You have to go to vaccine court, and it's capped. It's like all these labyrinth of laws that protect the drug companies from shitty vaccines. And like, I'm not talking about autism. That's what the focus is. Like, oh, these crazy parents with their autism. There are a lot of other reasons why vaccines hurt people. There are a lot of side effects and things that can happen, and you have to weigh the risk benefit. And now we have
everything in science,
like anything,
there's a cost benefit.
Yeah, and any drug. Even Tylenol. If your liver is shot, don't take Tylenol. I can take Tylenol. You can't take Tylenol. Like, it just, everybody's different. But no, we're not allowed to think like this. And the propaganda is so thick around that issue. And
it becomes
Facebook,
an us versus them. You're either anti-science or you're science.
Right.
As if science has one answer.
Yeah.
Science has concluded X,
and it's
that's it for all time, ever. There's no new knowledge to gain.
Right. And it's not just this vaccine, the polio. They say, oh, polio. It's like, well, yeah, the polio vaccine has been around for decades. It's a good vaccine. Like, blah. We're not talking about that one. We're talking about the HPV one that just got pushed on everybody, and it's brand new, and now kids are having seizures, and you know what I'm saying? Like are we gonna? Don't lump them together. Yes. So anyway, my point is that there's money behind that. The reason for that is the big pharmaceutical companies. They have to spend billions to develop these drugs. They have to have a government mandate. Like that really helps them get their money out and get profits. So, let's also get rid of the FDA. I agree. But in the meantime, how about whenever you see you can't have a conversation or you're shut down or, you can't talk about that because she's a child, you can't make fun of her. This is where we need to stop being like that. And we need to be like, okay, no, you can call me a racist. I'm still going to assert that what I see is true, that refugees are destroying communities, that mass immigration is destroying this country little by little, that it's already really hurt France and England, and we can see it happening there. It's going to happen here. They've just caught 40 Africans coming across from Mexico into the U.S. the other day. Like it was a news story this week. But it's not just Africans, it's Mexicans too. Mexicans have a culture. And if you import tens of millions of Mexicans, they bring that with them, and we can have the immigration stuff. Anyway, the point is the discussions should be had. Don't let them call you a racist. The memes should be fierce. Do not give an inch. The impeachment shouldn't be happening. I don't even care if they have a valid reason. Joe Biden goes down first. Then I'll consider it. Right? But he won't. So, whatever.
Yeah, it's more important to have a equal justice under the law than to have the law. Because if you're not going to
only applied against
law,
your side, you're fucked.
Yeah.
So what have we learned? I'm just trying to sum up here because we're over time now. I just want to say, get active locally, because that's where we got to go with this. It's got to be the counties revolting, the states revolting. Get active locally. Don't give ground. Those two things. No more giving ground. Don't think you're crazy. Don't let them gaslight you. And hopefully this show helps, right?
I think so.
I would think so.
It helps me. That's all I care about.
Nobody's listening. It's just you and me talking to each other and validating each other's
still helps.
Biases.
That's right. It
all right.
furthers my confirmation bias. That's good.
That's right. Okay, that's it for the House of Sunny podcast today. Join us next week. We'll see you then.
Thanks for listening to the House of Sunny podcast. Go check out Sunny on YouTube at her channel, House of Sunny. Everything Sunny does is fan-funded. And because she's likely to get kicked off and demonetized on every platform at some point, please support her over at patreon.com/House of Sunny. Become one of Sunny's elite squad and have access to behind-the-scenes footage, t-shirts, special events, and more.